Hello everybody and welcome back to Gaming on Caffeine. My name is Isaac and we are back for episode 23 of Feed the Beast Infinity Evolved Skyblock. Last episode we were working on setting up a mass fabricator and trying to get enough power out of these steam dynamos to get the mass fabricator producing UU matter at a somewhat reasonable speed, because right now it is incredibly slow. The main reason is because these steam dynamos are not actually doing anything, because as you'll know if you watched the end of last episode, we didn't have the best solution in the world for getting enough charcoal into the steam dynamos to get them up to that 640 redstone flux per tick that they can now produce thanks to all of the augments that we created for the steam dynamos. And what I've done since the end of last episode is I've spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out if there's a nice easy way to get enough charcoal into these steam dynamos to produce that 640 redstone flux per tick without running out of coal just incredibly fast and then not producing any redstone flux per tick. So you'll see right now occasionally all of these dynamos will get a little bit of charcoal, they'll provide a little bit of power to the mass fabricator, and you'll see that we do have 46 millibuckets worth of UU matter, which, as I mentioned last episode, is not even close to enough for replicating one piece of iridium, never mind the stack that we need in order to make all of the iridium plates for the Applied Energistics 2 wrench. So what I tried doing is I tried setting up a secondary tree farm, exactly the same as the first one that we have here. We have a new tree farm, which is exactly the same, it's just another tree farm. It's currently set up so that this original track is currently doing what it's been doing pretty much the entirety of the series so far. It's producing coal, and all of the coal that's produced from this tree farm is sent through to this boiler and then used for steam in these steam dynamos. And then the second one over here is currently being used to power the steam dynamos downstairs, and it's still producing nowhere near enough charcoal to keep the mass fabricator up and running at a reasonable speed. And so what we're going to start working on today is a completely new source of power, because I was thinking about it and I thought we could set up even more tree farms. We could look into Ender IO tree farms, we could look into Minefactory Reloaded tree farms, and get some very fast tree farms going that will produce a lot of charcoal. But we've already spent a lot of time doing tree farming, and we've already spent quite a bit of time making power through steam dynamos, and I kind of wanted to mix it up a little bit, because there's no fun in doing the same stuff over and over and over again. I wanted to mix it up, I wanted to try a different source of power, and so that's exactly what we're going to do at some point in today's episode. But what I want to start with is something that I kind of want to do at the end of last episode, and that is get some recyclers up and running in front of this mass fabricator, because you may have noticed there is a slot here. Actually, there are a few slots on the mass fabricator. Some people did ask if you can put overclockers into the mass fabricator to make it run faster. You cannot. The mass fabricator does not accept overclockers. I'm trying to put them in now, and it just does not work. Unfortunately, that would make it a lot easier to make UU matter, but what you can do is you can put scrap into this slot here on the left, and that will amplify the speed at which the mass fabricator makes UU matter, and the way that you get scrap is by putting anything into a recycler. So, if we come on over to our crafting station, I'm fairly certain we have everything over here on the left that we need to make a couple of recyclers. So the recycler, super easy to make. It's 3 dirt, 1 glowstone dust, 2 iron ingots, and 1 compressor. Compressor is just stone, basic machine casing, and electronic circuit. Let's go ahead and grab one of those, and then let's go ahead and make our first recycler here. For some reason, didn't want to shift click in, most likely because the compressor does not stack. Once we've got a recycler, I'm going to stick this thing down for now right about here. My plan is to eventually have 1 here and 1 here to make 3 in total. But you probably noticed last episode that we had this lava and water kind of cobblestone generator set up on the floor. And the reason why this is here is because I want to set up a cobblestone generator to provide the recycler with cobblestone, which the recycler can then turn into scrap, which it can then send up to the mass fabricator to amplify and speed up the rate at which it makes UU matter. And if we can get enough of these up and running to provide the mass fabricator with a constant amount of scrap, it's going to drastically increase the amount of UU matter that the mass fabricator can produce in a given time. So let's come back over to here and let's see about getting ourselves a transfer node so we can actually set up this cobblestone generator. And I don't think we currently have a world interaction upgrade, although one thing that I did do between this episode and last episode was add a few world interaction upgrades, or a few more world interaction upgrades to this transfer node up here. Originally it was set up like this, with just the 1 world interaction upgrade, producing cobblestone and sending it through to all of the devices. But since then we've added a ton more like blocks that require that cobblestone, like all of these crucibles and all of these compactors, and we didn't increase the amount of cobblestone that was being produced, and so most of these were not really getting enough cobblestone to create all of the sand, gravel and dust that were sifting down here. And so what I did between episodes, I made 21 more of these world interaction upgrades. And for those who don't know, the more world interaction upgrades that you have in a transfer node, the more cobblestone it will pick up at a time. You'll see now, instead of doing 1 cobblestone every cycle, every time it picks up cobblestone, it's picking up 22 cobblestone every single time and sending that cobblestone out to all of the things that require it. We may have a little bit too much cobblestone now, because you'll see a lot of it is being spat out and then collected by the vacuum hopper and just dumped away into the void. But we're now not under supplying all of our machines, because before, this guy over here did not have any compressed cobblestone whatsoever, and so we weren't really getting any redstone, bone meal, or any stuff in this chest, because it just kind of wasn't working. All of the cobblestone was being sent to these first 2, or in fact to the barrel over here, which actually leads me to another point. I have gone ahead and put a provider logistics pipe onto this barrel here, so that if we need cobblestone for anything, for example, if we want to make a bunch of glass and we don't have any sand, I've now taught my system how to turn cobblestone into gravel, then gravel into sand, and so it can pull the cobblestone from here, use that to make glass. Bit of a tangent, but the main point is I want to come over here and I want to grab a couple of these world interaction upgrades. We are going to make a few more in a second, because I want the transfer node down here to be probably full and have like a stack of world interaction upgrades to make sure that it's providing the recycler with as much cobblestone as possible to turn into scrap. But basically, let's go ahead and grab this transfer node. Let's stick it down right about here like so. Because we have lava on one side and water on the other, this will start producing cobblestone. If we put a world interaction upgrade into it, you'll see right now every cycle is producing 11 cobblestone, and that should be sending it through to there. It is. All we need to do now is start to provide the recycler with some form of power. For now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect one of these and actually stick it down right about there on the recycler, just to kind of show you guys how this is going to work. And you'll see instantly the recycler begins turning the cobblestone into scrap. The way the recycler works, it doesn't guarantee that you will get scrap, and it will actually take a couple of cycles to try and get some scrap, and we are actually running out of power, which is not good at all, because what I wanted to do was put 6 overclockers into each of the recyclers. I wanted to have 3 recyclers, 6 overclockers in each, so 18 overclockers in total, and I tested this out in a single player world, and that was about the sweet spot for getting enough scrap to keep the mass fabricator filled with scrap at any given time. However, my plans for power have not quite worked out as I would have liked, and right now we don't have anywhere near enough power to actually keep either of these running, let alone with the 6 overclockers in it. But we have received 3 scrap here. If I was to go ahead and throw this into the mass fabricator, you'll see it's got an amplifier, and whilst it has that amplifier in it, it will produce UU matter faster than it would before. Kind of hard to show you right now because we're not getting anywhere near enough power for the thing to even work, so it's kind of hard to show it off. But trust me, if you provide the mass fabricator with scrap, it will produce UU matter much faster than it does normally. So, now that that's out of the way, how are we actually going to power this thing? Because it's quite clear that these steam dynamos are not going to work, at least not in their current state. And I mentioned earlier in the episode that I don't just want to build a bunch more tree farms to try and get a bunch more charcoal to actually get these things up and running. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of scrap this power system entirely. And by that, what I mean is I'm going to get rid of the steam dynamos. I'll probably take those upstairs and connect them up to the current setup that we have over here. They're not going to be a whole lot of use just yet, because right now, when the system is under load, we're already taxing this steam boiler, but what I might do is upgrade our steam boiler to a high pressure steam boiler at some point in the near future, possibly off camera because it's not all that interesting, and then add those steam dynamos from downstairs up here just to provide our kind of general centralized power supply with a bit more power. And so for the mass fabricator down here, I want to move it over and start to use culinary generators to provide our power for the mass fabricator and for the recycler, and therefore for the UU matter, and therefore for our applied energistics 2 system. And for those who are unfamiliar, the culinary generator, which is from Extra Utilities, as the name would suggest, turns food into power. Any kind of food whatsoever can go in there. Different foods provide different amounts of power. For example, if you just throw in some basic bread, it'll provide a little bit of power for a couple of seconds, whereas if you throw in a supreme pizza, which I think might be in this mod pack, yeah, if you throw in a supreme pizza from Pam's Harvest Craft, which requires a ton of items to make, you can see it needs bell peppers, spice leaves, onions, pizza, which is made using dough and tomatoes and cheese and firm tofu cheeses like milk and salt and all that kind of stuff. This thing would produce a lot more power and would last a lot longer inside of the culinary generator. We're not going to make supreme pizzas today because all of these ingredients are a little out of our price range right now, for lack of a better term. It would take us a long time to breed all of the seeds together to get bell pepper seeds and to get tomato seeds and to get spice leaf seeds, and I don't really want to spend all that much time doing crop mutation. We are going to have to do a little bit of it later on in today's episode, but for the time being, we're not going to make supreme pizzas. Instead, what we're going to do is we are going to make some hamburgers. So if we look over here at hamburgers, which are again added by Pam's Harvest Craft, these are made using using toast and either firm tofu or raw beef. I'm going to use firm tofu because firm tofu we can grow. If we look at the recipe for firm tofu here, it is silken tofu in a presser. Silken tofu is made using soybeans in a presser, and soybeans we can grow from the soybean seed, and it's a lot easier to force items to grow, like to get a massive field of soybeans to grow and then harvest them, than it is to breed cows and then kill those cows and then take the meat and use that way. So what we're going to have to do to get this up and running is set up some kind of wheat farm so we can make toast, and also set up some kind of soybean farm so we can set up and make the firm tofu. Finally, we have the skillet here. This is just 2 iron and a stick. This thing does not get used up in the crafting process. It's an item, much like the pot, I think it is, that we have, that we don't have on our inventory. What we're using to make the applesauce, I think it's a pot, yeah. The pot doesn't get used up in crafting, neither does the skillet, and so we're going to use this to make ourselves hamburgers, and then we're going to use those hamburgers in our culinary generator to produce some power. The reason why I chose hamburgers is because they're very easy to expand upon, and you'll notice over here there are a bunch of different hamburgers that we can choose from, and so in the future, if we want to expand upon our system and make it so that it generates more power, we could always go ahead and add cheese to the mix. We could start making cheese, craft the hamburgers into cheeseburgers, then send them to the culinary generator, at which point they would start producing more power. We could always go up to bacon cheese, which is adding bacon to a cheeseburger. You know, then we can go deluxe, we can go bacon mushroom, we can add a bunch of stuff to the cheeseburger or to the base hamburger and have it produce a lot more power later on down the line, making it very flexible compared to the other food items. So what I'm going to do, guys, real quick, is I'm going to go away. I'm going to set up the farms over here. So we're going to have a big farm for wheat, and we're going to have a big farm for soybeans. What I'm going to do right now, I'm going to go away. I'm going to set up kind of the outline for what I want the farm to look like, and I'll be back in a second. And a little while later, we now have space for our wheat farm as well as our soybean farm, and a little bit of space in the middle for all of the processing. In this episode, I'm just going to do the wheat farm, and then between episodes, I'll use the exact same setup for the soybean farm, but there's no real point in me doing both of them because it's just an exact mirror of the same stuff. So what we're going to need to get this up and running is we need a planter, a harvester, and a fertilizer, all from Minefactory Reloaded, all to do their respective jobs. The planter plants, the harvester harvests, and the fertilizer fertilizes, as you may have guessed. And so what I've done is I've gone ahead and collected pretty much all of the resources we're going to need to make all 3 of those machines. One thing I should point out is that between episodes, I did teach my system how to make machine chassis almost entirely. It doesn't know how to make machine frames yet because I still haven't automated the assembly table from BuildCraft, but it does know how to make everything else within the machine chassis. And if I was to come over here to my request logistics pipe, I can go ahead and request machine chassis to make machines from Ender.io, or as it turns out, machines from Minefactory Reloaded. So we're going to start with the planter, and the planter is one of the easier ones to make. For this, we need plastic sheets, a flower pot, 2 pistons, a machine chassis, 2 electronic steel, and then a Z-Logic controller. The only thing out of all of this that we do not currently have is the Z-Logic controller. So let's go ahead and take some solarium, some zombie heads, some redstone, and some silicon. We got 1 zombie head, we got the solarium ingots, we got the redstone, we've got the silicon. I'm fairly certain we do have more zombie heads lying around. They're probably over in the caches over there, and each one of the planter, harvester, and fertilizer do all require a Z-Logic controller. So let's come over to our slice and splice. Let's stick all of these in here, and whilst we're waiting for the first one to craft, let's put all of you in there like that. Whilst we... Oh, the hatchet's gone? Do we have a hatchet lying around? We do, but I don't know if that's gonna work. It might, but I'm just going to put in another iron axe just to be safe. The iron axe does only have 1 use, which is why there was no axe in there. The iron axe got used up in the craft. That's fine. We can always go ahead and make a fresh iron axe for each Z-Logic controller. Let's go ahead and grab 2 more of those, and that should be everything that we need to make both, all 3 of the Z-Logic controllers. And once we've got those, I don't think there's anything else that we need in particular. Let me quickly go ahead and craft up a couple more of these iron axes here so we have enough for the second 2 Z-Logic controllers. And once we've got all 3 of those, let's take them, let's go back down to our crafting station, and we should now, I think, be able to craft all of these up fairly easily. That's the planter, like so. The harvester is a very similar setup. Actually, we don't have the dark steel required to make those axes, but I do have the pulverized obsidian and the refined iron, so let's quickly take those up to the induction furnace and get those smelted up. Other than that, I'm fairly certain that we have everything else. So we put that in there. That should get us 6 dark steel, and it did good stuff. Let's go ahead and take that. come on back down once again to our crafting station downstairs, and then if we go ahead and craft up some sticks, we can use those sticks to make the dark steel axes that we need for the harvester. We need 2 of those, 1 on either side like that. Boom, boom. We might have to put in all of the rest of the items individually just because the dark axes don't stack, so let's go ahead and put the plastic sheets either side like so. Let's quickly grab this iron and craft that up into some shears that can go at the top in the center, and then what do we do at the bottom? We need 2 gold and 1 Z-Logic controller. You in the middle, you 2 either side. That gets us the harvester, and then finally the last thing that we're going to need is the fertilizer. You don't need the fertilizer in order for the system to work, but if you want to speed up crop growth, the fertilizer is the perfect way to do that. So now we've got all 3 of these. Let's go set them up over here. The planter is going to go right in the center. It does have to go 1 block below where you're going to plant all of your stuff. For example, if you were to put it right there, it would try and plant on this level here. So you want to make sure that you put it 1 below the level that you're actually going to use it on. So for me, it's going to go right about there, like that. That's where the planter wants to go, and that planter will be able to plant on the level of dirt that we have set up over here. We then need to put down our fertilizer and our harvester. I'm going to put the harvester here just because, like I said before, all of the processing is going to go on in this middle section. And so it's going to be a lot easier if all of the wheat can just come straight out of here and go into like a pulverizer or a smelter and get turned into bread and then into toast. And then finally, the last thing we need to do is set up the fertilizer over here on the end like so. It doesn't really matter where you put that as long as it's kind of central in one of the middle sides. It could have gone there or there just as easily. And now we've got all these set up. They do need power, so let me quickly go ahead and run some hardened conduits to all of these. Okay, so my logistics pipe system is currently crafting up all of the items that I need in order to make myself some more hardened conduits to power all of my Minefactory reloaded machines. And whilst it's working on that, I want to work on a little bit of AGRICRAFT because we haven't really touched on any of the farming stuff in this mod pack yet, and there is some really cool stuff that you can do with farming. So for example, if we go over to AGRICRAFT here, I want to set up a sprinkler system to hydrate all of this ground and to ever so slightly increase the speed at which my crops will grow. And to do that, we need to set up an AGRICRAFT channel with a wooden tank and an irrigation channel, as well as with a sprinkler. So let's come over back to our crafting station. I think most of this stuff is pretty much just wood, and it is. The wooden tank is just like, it looks like the barrel from Ex Nihilo. It's just a bunch of wood in a U shape like so. We're going to take a few of those. I think 8 should be fine, should be more than enough. And then to make the wooden irrigation channels, it's just 3 wood in kind of like a bowl shape. So let's go ahead and make a couple more of those because they're going to be used to transfer water to all of our sprinklers. We are going to need 4 sprinklers, 1 for each quadrant of my farm over here, and it's one of the main reasons why I split my farm into 4 quadrants like this, because each sprinkler can cover a 7x7 area of land, and each one of these quadrants is 7x7 in size, which is why I've got these wooden panels in the middle just to kind of cover up the areas that would not be hydrated with the sprinkling system. And so what we need to do is we need to find the center of each of these, which is right about there, go a couple of blocks up, less than 4. I think if you go more than 4 up, the sprinkling system doesn't really work. And then from there, I'm going to set up a bit of a square that goes around all of the farm like this, making sure to put a corner every time we hit a center of one of these quadrants. Like so, and now we've got this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a sprinkler in each corner of this wooden irrigation channel, and somewhere attached to this wooden irrigation channel, we need one of these wooden water tanks, at least one of these wooden water tanks. We've got 8, which are going to be able to hold quite a bit of water. I might actually, just to make it look kind of cool, put them in the middle, like so. If we have this kind of come in like this, the water's going to flow. Actually, no, I can't put it there, because we do need to make sure that we have an unlimited water source that's going to pump into these tanks. And so, what I will probably end up doing is putting the tank along the back here and having like an unlimited water source somewhere over here off to the right, and then have that pump over to the tank. So if we do something like this and just fill this all up like so, if we do, I guess that, I want to make sure it's even. This big tank here will now provide water to these wooden irrigation channels, which will in turn provide that water to the sprinklers that we're about to make. And in order to make those sprinklers, we need some wood, and then basically just a bunch of iron in the forms of bars, buckets, and ingots. So let me again go ahead and request, let's see, let's go ahead and request some more iron plates so we can make some more buckets, because I do want to make sure we have a couple of buckets lying around so that the system can use them to make stuff like lumium and destabilized redstone if and when it needs it. But if we go ahead and request 12, that should be enough for us to make 4 more buckets and therefore make 4 of these sprinklers. Do we have 8 iron bars lying around? We do not, but again, we could probably just request that our system send us 8 iron bars, and then we'll go ahead and craft up the rest. We've already got some wood on us, and we already have the iron ingot on us as well. well, so that's fine. Do we have a fluid transfer node? We do not. We need to make ourselves another fluid transfer node just to set up another unlimited water source. So for that, we're going to need another bucket, which means some more iron plates, as well as some more redstone and some more of the other stuff. I'll get that in just a second. Let me quickly set up these sprinklers if I can. I think we have pretty much everything we need there. Let's go ahead and make 4 of these buckets like so, and then use all 4 of those buckets alongside some iron ingots. We are going to need a few more of those to make this work, and of course finally the wooden planks, which we have in abundance thanks to our 2 tree farms that we have currently running. So let's go ahead and throw you there. Let's throw the iron bars either side like so, and then the wood at the top. That gets us, we're going to only want to make 4 of those, and I'm going to put all 4 of these in the corners like so. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly go away. Let me quickly run and grab myself another fluid transfer node and another world interaction upgrade to set up another unlimited water source. Okay, so now we've got ourselves some more of these fluid transfer nodes. Let's come back over. I've set up an unlimited water source, or what will be an unlimited water source over here. Let's go ahead, stick you down like so, get rid of the dirt below it, stick in a world interaction upgrade, and that should start to pump water over and into this water tank over here. And once it does, that should then start to send that water out through the irrigation channels to the sprinklers. The sprinklers will then activate and start to hydrate all of the water below them, and also ever so slightly, like I mentioned before, increase the speed at which the crops actually grow. So this is filling up pretty slowly right now because of the fact that the thing's so far away. I might go ahead and stick in some speed upgrades, especially once we get the other farm set up, because we're of course going to have another line that comes off this side and kind of make it look a bit more symmetrical, and of course have sprinklers over above the soybeans as well. But as you can see, they are all now running. So let me quickly again run away and hook all of these guys up with some power, because my system should now be done with making all of the stuff for the conduits. And there we go. The planter, harvester, and fertilizer should all now be receiving some power. Let me just quickly turn off the hover mode there to shut the jetpack up. So now all of these are receiving power. However, by default, the planter, harvester, and fertilizer all work in a 3x3 area in front of them. So for example, this guy here will now only harvest these 9 blocks that are directly in front of it. The planter will only plant in the 9x9 area above it, and the same is true for the fertilizer, the 9x9 area in front of it. And so what we have to do is make some upgrades from Minefactory Reloaded to increase the size of which all of these machines will work. So if we go ahead and type in upgrades, there are a bunch of different upgrades ranging from lapis, which increases the radius by 1, all the way up to emerald, which increases the radius by 11. And we want to increase the radius from, we'll use the planter for an example. This one's going 3x3. We want to increase the radius by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in each direction. And so getting the 6th upgrade, which in this case happens to be silver, will increase the radius of the planter, harvester, and fertilizer to encapsulate the whole of the area. And to make these upgrades, we need 3 silver, 3 raw plastic, 2 redstone, and 1 golden coin, golden aubrey bush, or what we're probably going to use, just a golden nugget. The hardest part about this is making the raw plastic. There are some hard ways of getting this. For example, if you were to smelt up plastic sheets to get this, plastic sheets are incredibly expensive, especially when you compare them to the price of normal rubber from Industrial Craft 2. Unexpectedly, we are going to go ahead and use the rubber from Industrial Craft 2 because it is significantly cheaper and we have a ton of it. So if we go ahead and take some of that and smelt it up in here, we are going to need at least 9 of the stuff, so we can go ahead and make one of those upgrades for each of the machines. Silver, we of course have in abundance over here in our storage drawers. Let's go ahead and grab a stack of that for now. Redstone we also have in abundance, and then golden nuggets I think we also have a ton of, over here in this. I have heard people say, by the way, that I should make the compacting drawers. I will probably look at putting those up between episodes. For those who are unaware, compacting drawers are these guys over here, and essentially they're just like a normal storage drawer, but they automatically store ingots, nuggets, and blocks in one drawer, if that makes sense. Actually, you know what? Let me quickly make one of these. Okay, so this is how you make a compacting drawer, and essentially, it works just like every other storage drawer. Let me find one that doesn't have a lot of ingots in it. For example, Yellorium here. We've got 67. Actually, I don't know if Yellorium is going to work. Let me find one that's a little easier. For example, Invar. Let me take all of this Invar out of here, and let me break this Invar storage drawer real quick. If I break this, and I replace it with the compacting drawer, this guy right about here, I think we can put in upgrades in the exact same way that we normally would. Let me quickly just get rid of that. So I think if we shift right click, we can put in upgrades as we normally would and increase the capacity of these storage drawers. But what we can also do is I put Invar in there. You'll see it's now storing the same amount of Invar as it always was. But what it's doing at the same time is now allowing me to pull it out in block form and nugget form without having to actually craft the blocks or the nuggets. So for example, if I needed a couple of blocks of iron, instead of having to take 9 iron ingots out, craft them up, and then use the block, I can just pull it out as a block like so, and I now have 7 blocks that pull out all of them. It pulled out as many as it could because it works in the same way as it does before, but I can put all 7 of those back and still pull out the invar in its ingot form, and vice versa. I can do the same with nuggets, and it makes life a lot easier so that I don't end up with, for example, a chest over here that's full of golden nuggets that we could have stored in ingot form and don't need to be taking up so much space in these chests. So what I'll do between episodes, or at some point, is to go ahead and replace all of my ingot drawers, or at least all of the compatible ingot drawers, with compacting drawers here. Like I said, I'm not quite sure if Yellorium works. I'm assuming it will, but if it doesn't, I'll just leave it as it is right now. Anyway, back on topic. Let's go back over here. Let's grab our raw plastic. We've got the golden nuggets. We've got the redstone. I think that's pretty much everything we need to go ahead and make 3 of these upgrades. Let's go ahead and do that. Take these down to the planter, harvester, and the fertilizer. And one little item that you can make called I think the precision sledgehammer will actually show you the current area in which the machines can work. So let me go ahead and slot all of these in like so. Or you can just right click them in. That's pretty cool. I didn't know you could do that. But if we were to go ahead and make the precision sledgehammer, this guy over here, which to make it, we do need 3 plastic sheets, so I'm not going to make it. But basically, if you're ever in doubt about how your storage upgrades are working or what kind of area your machines are working in, if you have the sledgehammer selected in your hotbar, it will show you the current working areas of all nearby Minefactory Reloaded machines. I'm not going to make it because plastic sheets are a little bit of a pain to make. We don't currently have 3, and I know for a fact that all of these machines will work in the area that I've laid out here because I've tested all this in a single-player creative world. And so now that we have all of this, we have to actually set all of this stuff up. So let's fly up and let's see about getting some wheat seeds out of our chest over here. We've got 12 there, and we do have chicken bit there, which I probably made whilst doing some witchery stuff. We've got a little bit more wheat that I guess we could craft up into seeds like that. We don't have a whole lot of wheat seeds, but we can go ahead and throw them down for now, and of course we'll get more and more as time goes on. But if we throw that into there like so, you can specify in the filter what you want to plant where, but we don't really need to do that. And you'll see the land is automatically being tilled and automatically being hydrated by the sprinklers here, and the sprinklers will ever so slightly increase the speed at which these crops grow. You'll see these ones here grew very quickly there, probably due to the fact that the sprinkler is above them. What we are going to do, probably next episode at this point, is set up the fertilizer, this guy over here, to automatically create fertilizer using the logistics pipe system, and then use that fertilizer on all of the crops to increase the speed at which they grow much, much faster, and then have the harvester collect them all and send them through to the systems that we're going to have set up over here. So let me quickly, first of all, eat some applesauce so we don't completely starve. Then let's make another chest to stick behind the harvester just to make sure that none of the wheat or the wheat seeds end up on the floor. So let's put that right about there. Then let me quickly make some fertilizer just to show you how the fertilizer is going to work. For that, we are going to need some sand. There are actually multiple fertilizers you can make. If we type in fertilizer over here, you'll see there's the fertilizer from forestry, which is the one we're going to use because we have an unlimited source of appetite in the form of our sifting for sand, I think it is. And then we also have an unlimited supply of sand because we can turn cobblestone into sand through a little bit of pulverizing. There is then this one over here, which I considered using. This one is scrap and bone meal. We can make this one fairly easily because, of course, we have the recyclers downstairs making scrap out of cobblestone. The only reason why I chose not to do it is because bones are not as reliable a resource. They're pretty reliable. We're getting a lot of bones from the system and therefore getting a lot of bone meal. And also, actually, now that I think about it, we are also getting bone meal from sifting dust as well, aren't we? Probably in larger quantities than not. So I might actually end up using that fertilizer instead because we do have 7,000 bone meal. How much appetite do we have? We've got 9,000. We do have more appetite than bone meal, but I haven't quite decided yet. You can use any of those 2 fertilizers as well as the one directly from Minefactory Reloaded. This one's a little bit more expensive. It does require wheat. It does require string. I'm not going to use this one. It's a little bit out of my price range, so to speak. But basically, if we were to go ahead and grab some of the scrap that's built up in here over the course of the episode, combine it up with this bone meal that we can craft up like so. Let's go ahead and get a stack of both of those and then craft them up like that. That's going to get me a bunch of fertilizer. I can then stick that fertilizer into the fertilizer, and then that will go ahead and actually start to fertilize. Let me get rid of some cobblestone here, and that should go ahead and start to fertilize all of the crops within the area as it ticks down. It might take a little while, especially when you've got a field that's not particularly full like we have right now. I don't want that cobblestone. If you've got a field that's not particularly full, the way that Minefactory Reloaded machines work is they kind of go through every single block to see whether or not they can use their item or perform their action action on that block. And so what the harvester will be doing is that we're trying to fertilize all of these blocks in this row and then all these blocks in that row. It'll be working its way around until it gets to this line over here, and you'll see once it gets to this line, because it will do all of them at once. It'll just like apply fertilizer to all of these and go through about 9 fertilizer all at once. The same's true for the harvester and the planter. The harvester might look like it's not working for a few seconds, especially when you don't have a full field and the stuff's like all the way back here, because it has to scan the area to try and find out which items it can actually work on. But once you get a full field, you'll see that all of these machines do work pretty well. This should eventually start to work, but whilst we're waiting and hanging around for that to do some stuff, let me go ahead and quickly empty my inventory out into this chest over here, because I don't need most of the stuff that I have on me right now. And let's take a look at making some item ducts, because I kind of want to work on automating the entire process of this farm over here before the end of the episode, because right now, once the wheat seeds are fully grown, the harvester over here will harvest those wheat seeds, put them in the chest, and it will just have wheat and wheat seeds in the chest. And what we want to do is send the wheat seed portion of that harvest back around to the planter so they can get replanted and then reharvest later on down the line. We should have a little bit of hardened glass lying around in here. We do. We've only got 3. Yeah, we're probably going to need at least 1 more to make that happen. So let's go ahead and see about requesting some more hardened glass. Can I request, like, 3 more? I can't. I'm missing pulverized obsidian. Let's request 1 more. That's going to take us up to 4, which will get us 12, which might be enough. Let's request some tin plates. And also, we might have some item ducts lying around already. Do we? We do. Let's go ahead and take 3 of those. 15 should be more than enough. Tin plates we do not have, but thankfully our system will kindly make for us. And then finally glass as well. I don't think we have, but again, our system would have made it for us if we did need it. Has this managed to get anything done yet? It has not. Also, apparently I have lights missing somewhere. Oh, that's fine. Trust me, this should eventually cover this area over here, and I'm fairly certain that this fertilizer does work in there. Okay, so maybe the fertilizer from Industrial Craft 2 doesn't work. I was fairly certain that this fertilizer would work, but I just tested out some of the forestry fertilizer. If we come over here, I can craft up a couple of stacks of this forestry fertilizer, and if I put that into there, this stuff gets taken out incredibly fast. Again, it does have to do a little bit of scanning, but it shouldn't take all that long for it to realize that there is some wheat over here that can use it, and then use it on that wheat. Whilst we're waiting for that, real quick, let me come over here and make those item ducts that I was just talking about making. Let's go ahead and make a few of those. What are we missing? We're missing 1 more piece of glass. Let's go ahead and request 1 of those. But this should be working a lot faster. I just literally now put 8 fertilizer in here, and it used it all instantly. It might have just been good timing, like I might have put it in at exactly the right time when it was about to use this fertilizer, and it chose instead to use this fertilizer because I had it there. I'm not 100% sure. Let's come back here. I'll look into that and see if that works. I'm fairly certain in my single-player testing world that both of those items, both of those fertilizers did work just fine, and so should work just fine, I assume, on here as well. But nevertheless, let's come over here. Let's go ahead and dig a bit of a hole so we can get this pipe running underneath from here down and around to the planter. And again, let's quickly throw on hover mode like so. We do have a couple of item ducts down here, so let's just go ahead and do something like this. We should have probably actually invested in some fluctuating item ducts, which again, for those who don't know, are item ducts that can also carry power, so that we don't have to have kind of 2 lines like this. But either way, it doesn't really make a whole lot of difference. And let's also go ahead and grab the server that we have over here as well. I went for the Invar server or the hardened server. We did have a bunch of normal servers as well, but we are going to get quite a lot of wheat seeds coming through here, especially once we have a full field and we have our fertilizer fully automated, so I'd like it to go as fast as is possible. So let's go ahead and put you there. Let's make sure we whitelist seeds because we don't want normal wheat going down there, so make sure you set to whitelist, put the seeds on there, and set that to ignore redstone, so it'll automatically pull all of the seeds out. And then let's go ahead and fill in that hole there real quick with some oak. Is this still not doing anything? I cannot believe that has not done anything. But next episode, guys, we'll come back. I'll leave this thing running until we have a field that is full of wheat. And what we'll do next episode is we'll come back. I will have also set up the same exact setup that we have here, but for soybeans, I'll have the same planter, harvester, fertilizer with all the AGRICRAFT stuff. For the soybean, what we'll do is we'll set up automating the crafting and providing of the fertilizer to the fertilizer. It's a little bit of a confusing sentence because the fertilizer requires fertilizer to fertilize, but we know how to auto-craft fertilizer in our system, but we can also actually tell the system to keep this fertilizer stocked up with fertilizer, which is something that we'll do. We'll look into a little bit of AGRICRAFT crop mutation to get these wheat seeds up to 10-10-10 and make it so that when you harvest wheat, you get more wheat for the wheat seed. You don't just get one wheat per wheat seed, and also look into making them grow a little bit faster, even faster than they already do with the fertilizer. And we'll also, of course, set up the full system of getting the culinary generators up and running and turning all of the wheat and the soybeans into the burgers to then pump into the culinary generators. But with that, guys, I'm going to end this episode of Feed the Beast Infinity Evolved Skyblock there. As always, if you did enjoy the video, be sure to hit that like button. It really does help out a lot. If you have a suggestion or any other type of comment, leave it in the comment section down below, and I will see you guys next time.